All right, so good to be back. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Testign. Today we're looking at how we can log in our users. So already we can get our users. We can also register our users. But how do we get to log them in once they get registered? And so we're going to create an endpoint right here. So the way we do that is we use the instance of Express, which is our app.post. The reason why we have to use the post method is because we are sending information to our server. And so here it takes in the path. The path is going to be /login. But you could name this whatever you want. You could name it sign in, but I'm just sticking with login. We also take in a handler function. So it takes in the request object and the response object. It's going to be an arrow function, but you could also use a regular function. I prefer using arrow functions. So to log in someone, we accept their email and their password from the request body. So we are doing something similar to this. So we're going to say const, and then we destructure the email and the password. And that's what we're using to log in our users. We get that from the request.body. Once we get this data here, we want to check for the email in our database. So we have our database right here as an array. It's not an actual database. So we're going to use an array method called find. We can come down here and say our users, which is our database .find. So the way the find method of an array works, I'll take you to the documentation. You can see right here, it says it returns the first element in the provided array that satisfies the provided testing function. So we have to pass in a callback function. And let's see how they used it up here. So they have an array of numbers and they're trying to find a number that is greater than 10. Here, the callback function, it takes in an element, going to iterate through these elements right here. And so the first element which matches this condition right here is the one that is going to be returned, and it returns 12. Of course, 12 will be the first element that is greater than 10. So in our case, we have this email value, and so we want to compare with this email right here. So what we can do is inside here, we can take in a callback function. This is going to be our user, the user.email to be equal to the email that is being provided by the user up here. If that email matches, and there we have a user. And so now we can assign this to a variable called user. Okay, so we would find our user right here. Let me go to our request here. Let me try and create a new user so that you can see the actual user that we are trying to compare within the database. So let me send a request here. You can see our user has been created. Let me try and get the users right here. So the user is going to be this object right here. So let me copy this thing right here. So if I paste this thing, let's say we sent this email, this will return this object right here. Let me comment this out for now. And so once we get this object right here, we're going to compare this hashed password with this plain text password being sent by the user who's trying to log in. We use bcrypt. Bcrypt has a method called compare, which can compare the hashed password with the plain text password. We can say await bcrypt .compare. It has a compare method. So it takes in the plain text password and the encrypted password. This plain text password is password. So down here, I'll say password. The encrypted password user.password. So it's going to compare these two. This encrypted one, the hashed password, to the plain text password. Of course, this await, for it to work, you have to make this a synchronous function. So I'll say async here. And I'm going to assign this to a variable called is valid. But of course, you can name it whatever you want. This here will return a boolean, a true or a false. And so what we can do now is we can say if is valid. So if it's valid, of course, we can then log them in. So we can return a response.status 200.json. It's going to be a JSON response. Success. You have been logged in. Otherwise, if this is not valid, so this will not be executed. So we're going to return a response.status 401. We say JSON message invalid password. Here, if we do not find any user, so we say if not user, we're going to return a response.status 404. JSON and message user not found. So let me remove this right here. It was just for illustration purposes. So let's go and test this endpoint right here. So I'm going to go to request.rest to test this endpoint. I'll have to create another endpoint here, 3 hashes, and it's almost similar to this. So I'm going to copy this thing right here and then paste it right here. This is not going to be /register. This is going to be / let me see, login. So / login. So we have this content type application JSON because we are logging in. So we send our credentials. It's similar to this one. So we are not persisting our data. Let's register our user first and then try to log them in. So if I send this request, you can see here success user created. And then let me try and get the users. And so send that. You can see we have our user added to our database. And then let's try and log in our user with the same credentials. So if I send this request, you can see here, say success, you have been logged in. However, let's say I send a non-existent email. So let me say set so and remove that and let me send request. You can see user not found, right, which is this part right here. Let's say we have a correct email, but a wrong password. I add 2 numbers here, but the actual password is this. Send request. You can see right here, it says invalid password, but with the correct password, the correct email, send request, you can see success, you have been logged in. This is how you log in your users. All right, so in our next tutorial, we're going to look at creating web tokens that we can then send to our users so that they can access certain resources on our server. I hope this was helpful. If you find the video helpful, you can leave a like, leave a comment. You can also consider subscribing to the channel. I hope to see you in my next tutorial. For now, I'm out. Cheers.